Hello, it's JJ Humphrey, and we're here on Elephant in the Room. Hey, today we're missing old Bobby Cleveland. He had knee surgery and said he just wasn't up to it. He's still recovering from that, had that Wednesday, and so it's taking him a while. It's probably going to take him 2 weeks to get over that, from what I hear, most of those knee surgery. But today we have a very special guest, somebody that I've been wanting to meet for a while, not afraid to answer questions. Not afraid to tell his opinion, and that's more of what we need, and that's Andrew Hayes. Andrew, it's nice to have you here today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You bet. Looking forward. Have been looking forward to it for a while. Andrew, can you tell us? So Andrew is running for, it's a District 4 congressional seat. That's Tom Cole's seat. You're challenging Cole to that seat. Can you tell us a little bit about you and why you would want to take on such a challenge?
Well, I tell you what. Okay, so about me, I run cattle and I raise wheat. Sort of, I'm about one of the worst wheat farmers in the county, but in Comanche County isn't known for wheat in the first place. So, but I do pretty good on my cattle side, and I worked out there at that Goodyear plant for almost 12 solid years. Quit that in 21. And, before I worked out there, I actually worked at the prison that y'all was talking about last week.
Yeah.
And, man, I tell you what, I saw it all coming. But I didn't stay out there for too long. I went to school at OU, and I didn't graduate, but I learned a lot, and I had a little bit of fun while I was there. And met my wife in 07. We got together, got married in 09, and then we've got 3 kids. Paul is 12, Addie is 9, and Paxton is 3. And that just about sums it up. I build fence for other folks, anybody involved in agriculture. If you're operating on less than 10,000 acres, you probably need to have yourself a side hustle, of some kind, whether it's custom cutting or something. And so that's my gig, is I build barbed wire fence, and I make it look easy.
Well, what made you want to challenge Tom Cole? Because he's pretty well known and pretty well established. So what made you want to challenge him?
Well, I mean, his ideas are weak, and somebody said that he's one of the most ensconced, and he has the safest seat in Congress. But you go through his ideas and where he stands on things, and he's one of the weakest people in Congress. He's exactly the guy that does just good enough of a job to keep his job, and that's it. Let's look at this. His rhetoric is good on the border, but really we both know that we need an executive that will enforce the law that we have, right? So he doesn't really help us there. His rhetoric is good on guns, but the court has come out with Bruin, and plus, I mean, Oklahoma, I think we're okay. We have a little bit of work to do to get things just how we want it, but I mean, there's few states where we have better gun protections than we do. Abortion, his rhetoric on abortion is good, but we had Roe v. Wade overturned, and abortion is a state issue. So he doesn't do us any good there either. And what else is he good on?
Well, here's the deal. I mean, let's just break down some of the things that you're talking about right there.
Yeah.
As we've seen, politicians have become all about rhetoric and speech and talk. I personally, you can look at my record, and I don't just talk, man. I go after. I try to file on. If you want to look at what I've done with DOC, DHS, DAs, you name it, we're going after them. I can't get sometimes AG to act the way I want, sometimes the court. So what I started doing is suing them. So I'm not just talking. We have investigation after investigation, but let's talk about the border. You know what? We're being invaded. We've got drugs pouring over our border. enough to kill every American 6 times, just fentanyl. Talk about human trafficking. You're talking about slavery. It's a new slavery. We went backwards into slavery, and these guys are just talking rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? I was down on the border not very long ago. I can tell you, as a law enforcement officer, you seldom do you hear state or federal officers take a political stand publicly. These officers, whether they were state or whether they were border patrol, got up at this meeting that was all legislators across the United States. They got up and said, hey, Joe Biden is a traitor. Now they just flat out just said it. Joe Biden's a traitor. But the Republicans ain't much better, because what have they done? They've done absolutely nothing. And look where we're at. And they said, hey, we're calling all the states. We're not looking to Washington, D.C. to fix the problem. We're calling the states to fix the problem, because Washington, D.C. is broke. They're broke. And that's you're talking about being an ag. Have you ever seen a day where they're giving every bit of our agricultural out the back door? That if it ain't climate control, it's corporate America. If it ain't that, it's regulations to where you can't give this medicine, you can't give that medicine. You're going to have to put in a tracking device on your cattle, which is just a control effort. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then turn around and imports. So, imports, no regulations on them. Heck, you can get whatever. They ain't no telling what. They could be feeding them crap for all they know, and probably have. I've seen that happen. They feed them chicken crap. And again, what's the regulations on them coming in, and what's our regulations? We have a much, much better product, but guess what? What it costs us to compete on that product. And here's the deal with people: when we've labeled that product and said it's American beef, guess what? The American public buy American beef. Our price on the hoof goes up, but our government has said, oh, that'd be wrong for them people down in Brazil or them people down there in South America to have to compete against us. And people really go buy a pair of scissors, says made in China, but go get your beef and you can't tell where it come from. Something you eat. So just what's your thoughts on all of that?
Well, so gosh, I hate to defend coal, but look at the politics of where we're at. On the border, the House can only do so much, and then it has to be approved by the Senate. Senate's got to pass it. The president's got to sign off on it. What I've heard, and I don't know, but I've heard that we have all the laws on the books that we need to seal up the border. Okay, yeah. So why do we need to pass any more laws? That's what I mean. We just need somebody who will uphold his oath to office and do his job, in the White House. That's the answer to the border.
Here's where I'm at. I'm an old law enforcement guy.
Okay.
And one of the things I learned was that my job was to go out and investigate something, write up a report, or I'm supervising somebody to write up the report on what their supervision, all the efforts I got to try to stop them, or if they commit a new crime, what it was. And then my job was to get that to the DA. I had to learn pretty quick I was not the DA, because they'd tick me off, because I'd take them a report that was just knockout out of the park good, and then they wouldn't do anything. Boy, this drive me crazy. So here's what I learned. I got to stay in my lane. And you are absolutely right. The laws are there to enforce. We already have the laws. In fact, the Constitution, if you looked at, Section 4, Amendment 4, it's not Amendment 4, it's anyways, there's a part of the Constitution, and it's in Section 4, Article 4, Section 4, that says that one of the government's main purposes is to protect our border. And so, again, they're not doing that. They're failing on one of their major purposes. I think we've lost Andrew there, but I'll just talk on this for a second. We're failing as a nation to protect our borders, and a nation without borders is not a nation. And so, again, when our Congress, even if Biden is going to veto it, even if the Senate won't okay it, what we need to do is have a House that will do their job, whether it's impeach. We'd lost you for a minute. Whether it's impeach. So the House ought to impeach, my opinion, Biden for not one. Main job is protect that border. They ought to impeach him. Now, I know it wouldn't go through because the Senate probably wouldn't do it. But at the end of the day, guess what? They don't worry about the Senate. Do what you're responsible for.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I would say. So
it's just like you being a cop. You do your job, turn it into the DA. If the DA doesn't prosecute, you still did your job and you upheld your oath of office. And
that's kind of the way I see it. They're all worried about this one or that one. Do your job and be able to explain why you did your job. Hold your feet to the fire, hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
And again, and that's what, for my problem with not just coal, but many of them up there, not just coal, a lot of them up there, what I see is issue after issue like we're discussing today. I see these ag issues that a lot of people may not think is a big issue. I don't know. Have you ever looked at a deal called Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef? Have you ever studied any of that?
I haven't studied it. I've only heard of it.
Well, here's kind of in a nutshell. You have all these huge global corporate people. I mean, top, big money. And what they want to do is they want to control the food market by climate control and marketing and all that. And their ideal is communism, because they're like, well, certain countries have more food than they need. Some countries don't have enough. And we can control and we can level that up where everybody has the proper amount of food. Well, now who's going to make that decision? What's proper and improper? What's good for America? And when you see these tracking devices, when you see the things that we're seeing in agriculture, guess what? They're moving. And here's the other deal. You're seeing big lobbyists who should be in the rancher's corner, ought to be in your corner. People like Cattlemen, groups like Farm Bureau, our ag department, our OSU, and yet they're going in with these big packers and these big corporate, exclusive corporate globalists. And then they have what they call the American Roundtable, Australian Roundtable. You got all of these, and they're wanting. And if you looked at pork or poultry, especially like poultry, you can see how, and you watch these economic charts, how they crashed that market. And now, guess what? Only Tyson and Simmons, and you got some of these big corporates that control poultry, and you don't have the independent. Guess what? Same thing happened in pork. And if you look at beef, guess what? If you look at them economic charts, you can almost lay them on top of each other and they just look identical. And we've got the same thing going on with beef. I think COVID woke people up. I think COVID did stop some of that. We passed some laws that let us start processing plants. Yep. And now we're starting to sell our beef locally, but we still have the USDA trying to get in our way. USDA, I think, brings about 1.3 million to Oklahoma on a $3 billion business. And again, USDA ought to be, when we're looking at other states, when we're looking at nationwide, we need to kick them the heck out of Oklahoma and say, you do your job over there and we'll do what we want in Oklahoma. And again, I don't want to make people endangered. We want to make sure that our processing plants are clean, that we keep good, wholesome beef. But, that's the things that I see. You got any other things on agriculture that you think we could do a better job at?
No, I think you're on the right track, is to let the market work and to nullify these federal laws. That's your job. I mean, I can go up to Washington and fight on things like that. But that's what I mean. Talking about Cole, he doesn't fight for that kind of stuff. He doesn't talk about nullification. He's just absolutely weak. He's a paper tiger, and I mean, really the states, that's part of it, is getting the idea. That's one of these ideas that I'm putting out wherever I go. And I talk about state nullification, where the states have the power to just tell the federal government to kick rocks, that we're not going to comply. And, that would be a boom to our agriculture.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we need to do. You're totally correct in that. And here's where I'm at when we're talking about coal. One of the big issues I have on the big issues like border, like we're talking about, they do little. I mean, they need to go after the president, hold his feet to fire, like we said, make sure they do it. That's easy to see. But it's these other issues. Agriculture is huge. It's a $3 billion industry to our state. We're known for it. And yet, guess what? We're letting the federal government come in here. They just passed a deal saying we're going to start these tracking. Well, what's all that about? What is that anything? Again, that's just letting them gain more and more control, telling you what you're going to do with your beef, when you're going to sell your beef. That's what that thing is setting us up to, is where you can sell, how you can sell, when you can sell, the type of beef you can sell. I mean, it's all coming down the pike with things like that, more regulations. And again, people aren't holding his feet to the fire because a lot of people, they're not keeping up with it. Hey, I'm gonna tell you something. Food, when you ain't got no food, you're in a heck of a mess. And I don't think people really realize COVID should have been a wake up call. It should have been something that got every citizen involved on numerous things, but on food, it really should. And when we're talking about the economy and things like right now, guess what? That's going to be an issue. Why has our eggs went up? Why has beef went up so high? Why are all these products going up? And a whole lot of that has to do with transportation costs and the cost of getting something in, the cost of getting products to do business. So if you're out there feeding cattle, guess what? Your costs of feeding cattle have went skyrocket crazy out of control. If you want to park, crazy.
So one thing that I'm kind of on, that I bet you'd agree with me, but people don't talk about it all the time, is this ethanol in our fuel. They're taking corn that we can eat, that our animals can eat, and they take it and they put it in a car. And that's messing up, or that distorts our economy. Our feed prices shouldn't be as high as they are, and they're that high because, JJ, we have this idea that all the farmers are on the same page. Well, we're not. The cattlemen down here in Oklahoma are on a whole different sheet of music than the corn farmers up in Iowa, right? Because they're growing all this corn, and they're like, heck yeah, we want it to go into gasoline. We want ethanol in our gasoline because that bumps up. They're bidding, the gas manufacturers are bidding up the cost of corn. Well, I want that corn to stay just how it is so I can afford to feed my cattle. So, that's an issue.
Sure. And the thing about it is, I don't know where you're at on environmental issues. Look, you ain't gonna find anybody who loves outdoors anymore, who loves rivers, lakes, likes to hunt. I'm an outdoor person, and I'm for anything we can do to make sure that we protect. And you know what I found are these animal activists always against animal. Hey, we take care of the animal. Them animal activists kill an animal in 5 seconds. They'll seize them from somebody and go down there and kill them. Boy, that really helped the animal. They'll talk about environmental things when they do more harm to the environment than anybody you ever saw. But so much of this economy, like we're saying, whether it be corn here or whether it be, trying to make electric cars, which guess who profits from? All those electric car parts come from China. Who's the biggest violator in the world? So we're going to send all of our business, our car manufacturers, over to China, who violate and cause more harm to the environment. Is that not like idiot? I mean, stupid people would know better than that, but we seem to be stupid and keep just doing it. And you don't hear anybody saying this. This is what I can't get about our congressional people. Do you hear them talking about that?
So here's an idea, and this is one way. One of the things I'm actually pretty good at is talking to somebody on the left and bringing them onto our side. because the left is divided too. There's multiple issues that the left unites around. One is the environment, but the other one is the poor and the downtrodden. And I'm not saying Hillary Clinton or Obama. They're just evil. They're liars. They don't care about anything but power. But I'm talking about your neighbors, somebody that you run into at the store that's
sure. There's good people. Yeah, there's good people that have grown. My mom would be one example. If you're 70 or she's up 80, you know what I'm saying? For them, they were just hardcore Democrat. But again, they share the same values as you and me.
Right. So what I mean is somebody that's actually on the left, I'll take them and we'll talk about the environment. And I'll say, now look, with these electric vehicles, what we're doing is it's neutral. I explain to them the science of it, but I say, here's the real big problem with the electric cars is that I got a pickup truck that's sitting outside that's built in 1986. It's almost 40 years old. There's no way an electric vehicle is going to last 40 years. And so what does that mean? That means that the age of the fleet, the automobile fleet in the United States is going to get newer and newer. Well, as that gets newer and newer, how in the world are poor people going to be able to afford cars? And you bring that up to your run-of-the-mill, just like out there on the street, Democrat, and watch them. They'll be like, oh, I never thought about that.
What's the price? Go check. I actually rode in a pickup. That's the first one. They brought a test model up. Man, I'm gonna tell you something. You ain't rode in a roller coaster any more fun. It was a fun ride. That thing jerked a hat off your head like that. But again, what's the cost? Like you said, what's the cost? Because I would consider myself middle class. I own some land and may, on paper, I might look a little healthier than what I really am pocket cash. So many of us ranchers are, I mean, if you sell everything you got, you'd be pretty wealthy, but you can't sell everything you got, and the government takes half of it,
right?
Yeah, government gets half. But here's the deal. I'm a middle class person. I couldn't even begin. I mean, you know what I'm saying? The price tag on that, I was just laughing, going, that's for wealthy folk. That's for people. I couldn't afford it today, So again, exactly what you're saying. All of these, we're going to do, the climate control with these. No, it's not going to have any effect on the climate control. Really, all we're doing is outsourcing our jobs and our products to another country. That's really, and the outsourcing the jobs and the product, we're sending it to the worst violators in the world. And so if you want to do harm to the environment, if your real cause is environment, you're sending your jobs, you're sending your products over to the worst violators to be made. And if you're into, I'm for human, rights and all that, who's the worst violators? China, worst violators on human rights, worst violators on climate. So how can they produce things cheaper? I can tell you, because they don't follow all the regulations. They don't pay their people. They have them work sweatshops. That's how they do it. That's why they can do it cheaper. And that's why we can get it back cheaper. But all those climate control people and all of those people don't seem to take that into account. We're kind of talking on the economy, when we're looking at, we lost him again there. But I want to talk to people on when you're looking at wages. There's a big push in the state of Oklahoma right now. They wanted to push minimum wage, I think, up to about $15 an hour. So push minimum wage up to $15 an hour. And we got you back now. So we're talking about pushing that wage. They got some stuff in Oklahoma this year in the legislature wanting to push the minimum wage up to about $15. But again, here's what's funny. When we talk about that border, so many people don't talk about, we'll talk about we're being invaded. We'll talk about human trafficking. We'll talk about fentanyl. But guess what else comes over? Your people who undermine wages. So these illegals work for way less wages. And so guess what? I can bounce you up to $15 an hour. But if some guy can hire an illegal for 7 or 8, guess what? He's going to hire an illegal for 7 or 8. what's that do? Now you can't get a job.
Right.
And
Okay.
so,
Well, you brought up so much. Let me see if I can touch on some of it. Uh, So China, yeah. Well, they don't have the regulations, and this is my thing is like, hey, we are overregulated. We need to
absolutely.
rein in the labor unions. We need to rein in the regulation. OSHA is an unconstitutional organization. The EPA is unconstitutional. Those things need to be just got rid of. Period. It's not the purview of the federal government to do these things. You read Article 1, Section 8 that lays out the job of the federal government, and that stuff just isn't in there. And then you read along and you've come across the 10th Amendment. It says it, and I'm just summarizing it up, is that if the Constitution doesn't say that the federal government can do it, they can't do it. So it goes on to say, and that if something isn't prevented, that if the state is not prevented from doing a thing in the Constitution, like declaring war or making peace, the state can't do that. But if it doesn't say that you can't, then you can. So the states have the power to do these things. The federal government does not. So that's one thing. As far as getting our labor undercut, well, first of all, the border needs to be secured. I kind of I've been called a libertarian. I don't know that I'm technically a libertarian. There's a definition, and I don't know that I quite meet it. But you ask the question, you want liberty for who? This is one of the issues that the Libertarian Party is divided on. Some people want an open border. Some people want a very, very tight border. I'm one of the guys that wants a very, very tight border because you ask the question, you want to maximize liberty for who? Well, for me, the answer is me, my people, and my community, right? I hope that the people in Mexico find liberty and the people in Panama and Uzbekistan, but, I can't take care of them. All I can do is try to maximize liberty for myself and for my kids and the place where I live. So having a wide open border, that I don't like that. Here's an idea, and I don't know if this is more radical than you are or less, or maybe
you're in trouble. If it is, you're in trouble.
All right. Well, here's my thought, JJ, is that this country does not belong to the government. It belongs to the people. Therefore, the government shouldn't be able to say who comes in. It should be the people that say who comes in. So what my immigration policy would be, if I was in a position to enforce it, would be that there's no line for immigration. There's no application for immigration. I suppose there would be, but it's not like you just walk up to the door and you ask for an application or anything like that. What would kick the process off is 2 law-abiding citizens of the United States to sponsor a person from outside the country to come in and live here. You need to be invited. I don't think you should be able to go into somebody's house unless you're invited either. Just, my radical opinion there. There should be 2 people who invite you, and they're civilly liable. They're going to sign off and say that they're financially and civilly responsible for you, so that person is not a burden on the taxpayer if something happens, right? And those 2 people that sponsor, so you only get to sponsor 1 person per year, so and then I guess you could have a background check. I got asked about if the person would be required to pass an English test, and I mean, I guess so. I really think that I don't know. I just don't like the government laying out rules for people. But sure, I guess I'm okay with that.
Well, you know what? I don't say they'd have to. If you want citizenship, you can make that a requirement of citizenship. If you're here
Yeah.
on a green card, you could. But here's the bottom line: I think that we should have a national language, and I believe that's the language we ought to go by. Now, if some company wants to add Spanish or whatever,
Right.
that's again, that's I'm a private business person. So if you're in private business and you want to add that because a majority of your customers don't speak it, that's your business. But for the government to do that, I don't agree with that. The government is the government. The government is in this United States. It's United States government. Therefore, we have one language, and you either get aboard if you want to be a citizen, leave your flags of the other country down there, leave, come and learn the language, and assimilate is what they call that. Assimilate.
Yeah.
That's what you ought to be doing. That's the people we're looking for. We're not looking for people to come in and overthrow us, and that's the concern. And again, when we're looking at that control of the border, that's what we're looking at. That's why we have to control it. And again, I think we should have discussions like, because let's face it. I've got a friend that has a trailer manufacturing down here, and half the people that work for him are Hispanic. He's happy to hire somebody right around here. He puts everything out. Guess what, everybody? Oh, I can't find a job. Dude, he's paying 16. He's got a retirement program. He starts you at 16. He'll increase you. I think I talked to him. I think it's what he starts at. Let me say that. But he starts good. He pays, he's got retirement. He's got all kinds of stuff. He's a good place to work. Guess what? He brings in. But right now, because of all the confusion on the border, he can't have his people. Usually his people go home when he's shut down kind of in the winter. They go home and visit. They come back. Now they can't leave, go home because they're afraid they can't get back. It's the biggest mess. So again, those are the things that I don't see. Even if I don't like your stance, I would just tell you Langford, I'll publicly say I put him in traitor category on J6. I handle J6 and on the way he handled border and some how he's handled some of the issues on judges. But at the end of the day, these are the issues that I don't see him talking about. They could have real impact on what we're talking about. You were talking about that sovereignty and how that we should be able to tell the federal government, hey, the federal government's come in here raided. I just had a guy in my district. He's a preacher, school teacher, federal firearms dealer on the side, just a hobby him and his kid does. The feds, the ATF, come in and raid him. They called him and said, hey, could we come and look at all this? He's like, come in. Can we come back and look at this? Come in. He let them look at his guns. He let them look at his books. There was no need to raid that individual. Raid's what you do on people that's going to shoot you back and all that.
Exactly.
He wouldn't let them in. They called him, where you at? I'm leaving. I'll wait on you if y'all need to get down here. And they show up in the black ghetto suits and raid his place, handcuffed him in front of his kid. See, don't charge him, but seize like 52 weapons. Write him back and say, we'll make all this go away pretty much if you'll sell us your guns for $10 a piece. If that's not extortion, then they take him to a grand jury, couldn't get him indicted, had to double back around and take him to the second grand jury and got him on selling ammo. Now, you can go buy ammo anywhere, selling ammo to a felon. A felon can walk in 99% of the places in the United States, buy ammo. They can walk in Bass Pro. They can walk in Cabela's. They can walk in they don't do any kind of background check. They don't card. They don't have a waiting period. So you walk in as a felon and buy that. So now they're going to take a preacher, teacher with an impeccable record and ruin him. And our state is going to sit and let it happen,
Right. That's not right. So hang on, wait. First of all, I wonder what you think about that, the invitation policy to bring in immigrants.
Here's the deal, Andrew. I think that I'm okay with that as long as we have the door controlling it. I mean, and as long as we're vetting who they are. I don't want somebody who's going to come in and become a terrorist. I want people, right. And again, we don't want them to empty out their prison and come here. We want, like you said a while ago, if I have and you were saying like one person can have one person. Well, I'm okay
Two.
with, yeah, okay.
Okay. So under my plan, look, what my thought process is it takes two people to make a newborn American citizen.
Right.
So it should take two people to make a 26-year-old American citizen. And because and it's also an idea. I guess I kind of draw it out of the Bible in a way. If it takes two witnesses to condemn you, then it just kind of makes sense to have two people to sponsor you and bring you in too.
Yeah.
You know,
And,
and
and
and that's
again,
and that's but see that's the idea of the vetting process because I don't really think the government does a very good job of hardly anything. So let's leave it to the individual people and have two people sign on the dotted line and put their ass on the line and say, yes, I vouch for this person. And so they bring him in.
right.
Yeah.
And I
And
think we can have a great here's the problem with our whole government. We used to have a process where we could have conversations like it. And I could jump in and go, well, what about a business? Could a business have more? And you might, hey, I never thought about that. And let me
right.
think about it just a second. Well, now hold on. We can have a great conversation and come up with a great plan, but
Mhm.
we quit having conversations and we quit doing anything. And all we do is come out with rhetoric that gets
Yep.
absolutely nothing done. And we're not seeing a hell of a whole lot get done. I can't say anything, and I'm pretty close, as a state legislator. I think I'm probably watching it. You want to have a conversation just about anything you want to talk about, whether it's national security, whether it's energy, whether it's technology, whether it's education, health, whatever you want to talk about. I don't want to act like I'm an authority on it, but I probably am watching it closer and get more material and read more material than the average cat out here. And so, again, what I'm seeing, whether it be healthcare, whether it be education, whether it be any of these, the federal government is trying to take more and more control, and they're doing it in education. They're doing it like controlling the educational dollars. That's our tax dollars. That's us, our tax dollars. And they're going to come back and say, well, unless you push transgender, unless you push homosexuality, unless you push, guess what? Them things ain't got nothing to do with education. How about we push math? How about we push reading? How about we become one of the nations known for education and we let everybody else pick? You can discuss that at home. If you want to be a transgender, I ain't down with that.
No.
I ain't got no use for it. But guess what? I wish you'd come to church with me because I don't want you. You know what I'm saying? I'm open to seeing you change. And you can say you're open to seeing me change. Okay. I don't have to hate you, but I disagree with it. So I'll keep mine. I'll answer for me. You answer for you. But let's not have that. That's got no place in our public settings. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. But that's kind of what my campaign is about as much as anything is having a conversation about these ideas. At the end of the day, JJ, you're just a guy and I'm just a guy and we're going to be gone one day. But the ideas, smarter people than us have talked about these ideas before we showed up. And after we're gone, these ideas, this debate's still going to be happening. So, I don't get into the, JJ, I made one comment. I think I stirred some people up. I said, politics is for losers. Well, the politics about who's supporting who and basically the high school drama is what I'm talking about. The high school drama of politics is for losers. It's that's just straight up. The ideas, though, the addressing the problems that we have and thinking about it, understanding where the other side's coming from, being able to listen to them, and coming up with a solution that, well, they might not like it, but it's going to work. That they can live with. That's the idea. And and I touched on something right there. I want people to understand. Like I mentioned a minute ago, I kind of have a gift at talking to the people on the left and bringing them more towards the right. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens incrementally, but I do bring people more over to the right. And I'm good at that. It's not a matter of compromise. It's a matter of listening and acknowledging where they're coming from. On the transgender stuff, some of the left, you have to know who you're talking to. A lot of the left is bonkers crazy. They're nuts. Some people on the left, are not crazy, and they're coming from a good place. They just have never read a history book, or they've never read an economics book, and so you just have to kind of lay some things out there for them. And there's a certain way to do that that doesn't challenge them, that just causes them to think. I got a saying that I'm not out here trying to change your mind. You're a grown man. You're going to change your own mind. What I want to do is make you think. And
Well, that's what I want to be able to do when we're having a discussion. It's okay to disagree, but can you tell me why you disagree? Can you tell me why you believe what you believe? And then we can sit down. I'll tell you why. We may never reach an agreement, but I can walk away going, well, I can understand how he got to his conclusion. Or even if I can't understand, I go, well, that's what he believes. He's wrong. But let me tell you one thing I've seen in the government, and that is 3 or 4 up there, 3 or 4 control the whole process. And I'm sitting out here, my input has no input, and yet they won't stand up. So what you have, whether it's state or federal government, you get this process hijacked. I'm supposed to represent 39,000, 40,000. Guess what? I don't represent them because these 3 or 4 took away my voice, and they're controlling everything. And those 3 or 4, guess what, are controlled. Now, here's what's funny. Now, I'm going to piss off probably the Republicans a little bit here. But those 3 or 4 that'll be the Republican Party are controlled by the same ones that are controlled by the Democrats. It's the globalists, it's the state chambers, it's the farm bureaus, it's the lobbyists, it's the, whether it be healthcare, whether it be insurance, all of those who control, they all dance to that purse string, whether it be Democrat, Republican, they all dance to it. And yet most people will not call it out. And if you do call it out, you're going to be, and again, I think there are some that are just plumb crazy. Again, what we're talking about, you have to be able to back up what you're calling out. You have to call it out and go, here's why I'm saying this. And again, but I will tell you this, Andrew, if you do that, if you do document, if you do have a basis and can prove your theories, your thoughts, they'll hate you even more. They will hate you.
Yeah.
Because again, don't take my word. Here it is,
Yeah. Well, and I've gotten that. I've gotten that here lately too on a couple different issues, and it's really frustrating. I get called a couple names, and they tell me how wrong I am, and and I'm like, well, hey, after you get done with the insults, can you please tell me why I'm wrong? Tell me why I'm wrong. So I'll bring up an issue to you. We have a runoff in our primaries. If Cole only gets 46% of the vote, then there's a runoff, and he's either going to have to be in a runoff with me or Paul, probably. And that's good. That's what we should have. JJ, what I got a problem with is when somebody's in a race and they get less than 50% of the vote, and then they take their seat. And how can somebody be a representative and not get 50% of the vote? We had this happen in 2002 with Brad Henry. Largent was a Republican, and Richardson ran as an independent. They split the conservative vote, and Brad Henry became the governor in 2002 with 44% of the vote. Now, how's that right?
Well, I agree. And again, and I guess so, Paul, I actually went to one of Paul's fundraiser deals, listened to him, and he seems like a nice enough guy. But I have real issue on just some honesty issues about where do you live. You know what I'm saying? If the rules say I can live in Texas and file against them, just say, hey, by damn, I live in Texas, but I'm following the rules and I can't. Don't make it smoke and mirrors like I live somewhere that I don't. And so that's a little issue that I have with him. I don't know if you watched a news article the other day where they were trying to just get him. Where you at? Where you at? Wouldn't answer it, and so
Yeah.
again, I have issue. But I agree. I mean, hey, you would think you'd have to win with 50-something%. I was in my first election. We had 3 people running, and I think I won 52 or 53% of the vote. That's hard to do without a runoff. I mean, that's really
Right.
tough to do in an open
Here's
season.
here's the thing, though. If you had won, if you had and people, I guess, they think they know, but they don't know what plurality voting is. Plurality voting is if you get more than the other 2 guys, you win. So, mathematically, it could happen that one guy gets 35%, another guy gets 33, and another guy gets 31. That adds up to 100. So the guy that with 35% of the vote in plurality voting, he wins. He's done. He's the winner. And I've got a real problem with a guy getting 35% of the vote and going up to the Capitol and becoming the representative. And, I've brought this up, and they say, well, runoffs are too expensive. I say, okay, well, why don't we do instant runoff voting, which at one time was synonymous with ranked choice. But I'm telling you, JJ, what Alaska did is they made a mess of it. They tried to reinvent the wheel. And I'll tell you why, because nobody wants ranked choice. Nobody in power wants ranked choice, because what it does is it allows the people an alternative that you can actually vote for a third-party candidate. And the Republicans and the Democrats, they don't want to be challenged. They don't want to be bothered with that. They're happy to fight amongst themselves and their little peer group. Because like you said, at the end of the day, they're on the same page, right? So many of them are.
I do believe that.
Yeah. Well, so what they did is they set it up. What they did is they had a jungle primary where every party, every candidate, and every party is in the same primary. So if there's 5 Republicans and 4 Democrats, there's going to be 4 candidates that advance to the general election. Well, the thing of it is that it's going to be a Republican. It's going to be Republicans and Democrats. That's it. A libertarian isn't going to be able to climb up through that process. An independent isn't going to be able to do that. So what the idea is to allow what should happen is I guess that's the main difference is what they did in Alaska is they tried to reinvent the wheel, and all I want to do is solve a problem. If somebody doesn't get 50% of the vote, we should have a runoff. Then they come back and say, well, that's too expensive. All right, well, let's do an instant voter runoff, a contingency ballot, where if there's 3 people in the race, the guy that comes in third place, you look on those ballots and see who the runoff candidate would be that they vote for. And it's done. And I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why that doesn't work. Here's another idea. This is even worse. Why don't we have a poll tax? Look, I don't care how it's done. I just don't want to have somebody representing my district that gets less than 50% of the vote. That's what I'm about.
Well, here's the deal where I'm at. All the money that government wastes, I don't even want to hear it's too expensive. You know what I'm saying? I don't even want to hear. You just got through sending how much to Ukraine. You just sent how much to every nation. You pay. We just busted you for sending Hamas money. By damn, don't even talk to. Quit sending money to Hamas and let's have our own. Let's secure our own elections. There's nothing. Secure the border, secure the election. Probably 2 things. And again, we should be having conversations. And people who, that's kind of that ranked choice. I understand kind of what you're saying, but here's the deal. If we were going to have a real discussion on that, guess what? I'd be like, hey, give me 2 days. Give me 2 days because I'm going to have to go study this a little bit more because I don't understand it. And so many politicians want to act like, I know everything. Well, guess what? I know very little. I know corrections. I know law enforcement. I know a little bit about the beef. I will tell you, I thought I knew a little bit about the beef, and I got in politics and really started studying and found out how little I knew about all the processes and all the imports, exports, the diseases and medicines and the labelings and all the issues and tracking devices. Guess what? We need to educate ourselves. But here's the deal: we should be able to have an open discussion about it with people without them getting so pissed off. Oh, he wants rate voting. No, that's not what he said, people. He didn't say he wanted rate voting. What he said is he didn't like somebody having 35% of the vote or 43 or even 48 or 49. He said there ought to be a clear-cut 50% or more to be declared a winner. That's a conversation I think that's reasonable to have a discussion about.
Right. And the other question is how do we achieve that? See, here's the idea. So I'm a student of economics, and at some point, well, studying economics, you learn it pretty fast. Most people, I think, hopefully learn through life that there's no such thing as a perfect answer. There's something called trade-offs. You're always having to trade this for that. You don't get a car that's safe, fast, powerful, and cheap. That doesn't exist, right? Oh, and fuel efficient, right? There's trade-offs. So what do we want? What do we value most highly? And I value most highly the winner getting an actual majority of the votes. So I'm willing to go through a slightly more complicated process. And again, the people in power, they sabotaged this idea in Alaska because they didn't want it in the first place. But they got pressured into it. And so they said, fine, we'll do it. And they did it in a way that kind of ruins it, right? I don't know if you've ever had that happen. I'll admit there's a time or two when I was young that Granddad wanted something done one way, and so I would do it his way, but I did it in such a way so it failed. It was sabotage, right? And I'll admit that. But that's essentially what the Alaska state legislature did up there.
And you'll have purpose sabotage. And then a lot of times, hey, they may even wanted to deal, but you have unintended consequences because they didn't take the time to really analyze what they're saying. So unfortunately, I think a whole lot of times it's purpose sabotage. I think there is a whole lot of that going on. But I know as a legislator, I voted on things where I had great intentions and then just didn't think out the whole process, didn't know the whole process, and bam, boomerangs back around and go, wow, I never intended that to happen,
Right.
So that can happen as well.
But I'll tell you this, all of our elections are handled at the state level. It's the state that has to figure out how to run our elections, and the state that has to pay for them. So that's your job. People get upset, I guess, on me having my own personal thoughts, but what a congressman thinks on issues like that doesn't matter a lick, because it's not in my purview of what I'm allowed to do, right? So
here's my thought is that if we ever seen, whether you agree whether elections stolen, not stolen, the fact that we've had 4 years having to have a discussion, the fact that we've seen all the evidence, the fact that we've had all the problems, the fact that they were going to have a hearing to show that and then had a ruckus, which I think was arranged, and which I think they ought to do a better job protecting the people there, that they ought to get a decent court hearing and have what we call probable cause before you get arrested and not move you all over, hiding you out and all that. We go into all that. But at the end of the day, look, this needs to be a conversation that we can have to say, look, you can argue either side, but the fact that we're arguing tells you we need to do a better job and we need to have safe and secure elections.
So look, our elections, look, I'm also a historian. It's a little bit harder to say that 2020 was stolen. It's harder to say that 2020 was stolen than 1876 or 1864 or 1868 or 1960, because all those things are way in the past. And by the way, those elections that I mentioned, were all stolen. 1876 was the most corrupt election in our country's history. But we have the virtue of hindsight, right? And I have a suspicion that when everything involved comes to light, that it's going to be pretty clear to everybody that the 2020 election was stolen, just like 1876.
Hey, I would submit to you that I would bet you if we start looking at the whole process, what's happened in the last, not just 2020, if you want to go back 16, you want to go back 12, that again, whether they were stolen or not, I would say that there was foul play going on in all of those elections, even going back to when you saw the pregnant chads between, Gore. And again, you can argue whether that was stolen or whether that was right or not. But the problem is there was foul play, and we need to come up with the process, which I don't think would be, if we can send people to the moon and we can create all the AIs and all that, surely we can come up with the process that makes fair and righteous decisions.
You would think, and certainly we need to do more to limit it. There's an idea that you touched on that I think might be just a bit utopian, that it's a little bit like football. I never played football. I wrestled, which there's always cheating in wrestling too. But that's the idea, that there's always cheating going on. Football is a really better example. There's always bad calls by the ref. There's always a penalty that doesn't get called. But my thought is, and this is what I say for now, is that, man, we got to do a better job, because if the election is that close that it's able to be stolen, then
and that's the ones that are really if you want to look at state elections, you hit right there. On this presidential thing, I think it's corrupt, from major corruption. But the ones that people aren't talking about are like these state elections that are razor thin, and it's easier to cheat those and get away with it because people. And so how many of those that people don't understand the extreme consequences of that, like your election, and to have, whether that Republican, is that going to be a Republican House or a Democrat House, and those kind of things. So again, those are big issues that we need to address.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I was going to tell you, I in law enforcement, we got to go out and qualify every year. You used to talk about cheating, and we always have a saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. You know what I'm saying? And so we always shoot that target, might throw a little extra lead at it, Actually, I can shoot mine pretty decently. But in the past, I have been known to throw an extra one or two at it occasionally when they were making. It used to make it really tough, boy. I mean, it used to be really tough. Not so bad anymore. Hey, you know what? I laughed. I'm going to show everybody something when we sat down here, and I told you I got a whole bunch of issues that I was going to throw at you. Hey, I bet we didn't even get half a page done. We're going to have you come back and have another discussion. But we hit on, whether we didn't get into the war issues or some of the economics or the COVID. Boy, I wanted to get in COVID and the WHO and all that. But man, we covered a lot of ground. And I think people got today to see how you think and where you would be on representing them. I encourage you. I think it's hayesforhouse.com, hayesforhouse.com. If you're interested in supporting him, donating to his cause, have a question, I bet you'll answer it if they send you a question. And again, just to see where he's at, get on there and find out what events he's going to, where you can go in person and listen to him, see if he's got, I don't know if you got any fundraising, you got anything coming up?
No, no, I sure don't. I tell you what, I'm asking people to just donate $1 or $5. We're not, Bondar's sucked a lot of air out of the room by virtue of him being a millionaire and everything. People don't want to. It's one thing to bet on David in a fight with Goliath, but man, if there's two of them, that's different odds. But I'll tell you this: that donate $1. I'm not trying to raise a ton of money. What I'm trying to do is round up a ton of donors. Okay,
Right.
that's my goal.
I've got the same thing. I've told people I do not want money from lobbyists. I do not want. What I want is, if I'm going to represent, I want to represent the people, and I'd rather have 1,000 donations of $10 than 10 donations of $1,000 all day long. I
Exactly.
want to represent the people, and that's what we're lacking. I don't want to answer to a bunch of lobbyists. I want to answer to the government, which is the people. And I think we've lost that, and we've lost that. Everybody wants this statesman, this shiny, polished person,
Right.
millionaire. And guess what? They're not interested in you and me. I want somebody who's going to be interested. Don't have to agree with me 100 times. In fact, I want the guy who will disagree with me and has the guts to disagree.
And that's the thing. Everybody wants an honest politician, but I come out and I'm honest, and I disagree with people on how our elections ought to be, which is it's an important issue, but it's not a federal issue, so I don't have a actual role to play in that. I might have different views, some more nuanced, slightly different views on the conflict in Israel, but at the end of the day, we shouldn't be giving them money at all. The United States should have no role in that. So your own personal beliefs about who's right and who's wrong, it doesn't matter, right? But I'm honest on this stuff. They said, well, we can't have him. He thinks different on this or that. Well, all right. That's why Congress is the way it is because when an honest person comes along, then you run them off.
Here's where I'm at. I look at that and go, you know what? Here's a guy who knows he's going to catch hell for saying something, and he's willing to stand up and catch hell. And here's what's funny to me. I can vote with the group 900 times and vote against them one time, and they're ready to eat my lunch over one vote and forget about the 900. Here's another guy, voted against them 900 times, votes one time, and all of a sudden, we got to get out of that, man. We can't be one issue party, one issue people. We got to take the whole and say, you know what? Me and this guy, we disagree on 2 or 3 subjects, but in the whole, I agree with him. And again, who's running him? That's the biggest deal. Who's running him? Is that an independent thought he has?
Yeah.
Or is that a thought put in his head?
And by the way, just going back to honesty, I'm not trying to rally votes for Bondar or anything, but I'll tell you the story he told me because I talked to him from time to time. And the thing is that, hey, on Israel, Bondar and I actually agree. On the voting, I think we would agree. We haven't actually talked about that one, but he told me that the day that he had that interview where he was being kind of he was being shifty about where he is at. He put that into a little bit of context for me. He told me that earlier that day he had gotten a threatening phone call, and that it was only an hour before that interview happened, and that he was really not in a position to want to say where he was at, right, and to let people know that he wasn't at home with his family, and that's why he wasn't forthcoming. Now that's right, what he told me, and that makes sense. I don't want people knowing when I go out of town so they can come and get, load up my cows.
Hey, I had 2 bomb threats 2 weeks ago. I named out my wife in person, so I totally get it. Again, I've donated. I didn't know you were running. I donated his. I went to a deal with him. What I was really doing is just sending out a message to Tom Cole saying, hey, you know what? There's a representative who strongly disagrees with, and again, I think he gets all the rhetoric right. My deal is less talk, more action. You know what I'm saying? There's a song like it. Hey,
yeah,
go ahead. Hey, we got to wrap it up. We're already over, but I want to give you the last word. Give you 2 or 3 minutes to sign off here. Just tell people, again, what you stand for, and give us the last out before we leave.
I'm the only veteran in the race. I'm the only farmer in the race. I'm a 5th generation Okie like Tom Cole, but I'm not a rhino. I believe in the free market. You know, liberty. I'm running on the Republican Party platform, and I don't know. That's about it. State sovereignty. Those are the four cornerstones of my campaign: is the party, free markets. Well, now it's hard to remember all four of them, but anyway, I'm also trying to rattle them off as fast as I can. I guess visit my website. I tell you what, my phone number is public, 580-458-7860. If you disagree with me, that's great. I'd just like to know why. So reach out to me on Facebook. Tell me why I'm wrong. And, you know, I've changed my mind on some things before. So you might have a shot to bring me over to the right side. I want to be right on things. So if I'm wrong, come and let me know, and we can talk about it.